The gleaming, restored 1967 Mustang rolled into the company parking lot, its engine purring like a contented lion. Behind the wheel, Mike Collins smiled as the CEO's jaw dropped in disbelief. The same man who had laughed in his face a month ago now stood speechless, watching as Mike's children climbed out of the car that was supposedly beyond saving. The crowd of employees erupted in applause, smartphones recording the moment that would soon change everything for this determined single father. If you're inspired by incredible comebacks and stories of determination against all odds, hit that like button right now and subscribe to see more real-life transformations that will restore your faith in human potential. The day Mike Collins' car died was the day his world threatened to collapse. Rain hammered against the windshield as Mike turned the key for the 5th time. The old Mustang, a family heirloom passed down from his father, made a sickening, grinding noise before falling silent. He slammed his palm against the steering wheel, glancing at his watch. He was already late picking up Emma from dance class, and Liam would be waiting outside baseball practice in this downpour. "Come on, just one more time," he whispered, turning the key again. Nothing. At 38, Mike had weathered plenty of storms since his wife Jessica's death 3 years ago. He'd learned to be both mother and father to their 2 children, mastered the art of French braids for 10-year-old Emma, and never missed one of 13-year-old Liam's games despite working overtime at Precision Engineering. But this might break him. The car wasn't just transportation. It was the last gift from his father before he passed, a connection to his childhood and the one luxury Mike allowed himself after pouring every spare dollar into his children's future. After calling his neighbor to pick up the kids, Mike called a tow truck. The Mustang's final destination was Phoenix Auto Group, the only shop in town that specialized in classics. It was more than he could afford, but he had no choice. The next morning, dressed in his work uniform, Mike stood across from Marcus Phillips, the CEO of Phoenix Auto Group, watching the man's face as he inspected the vehicle. Phillips was a local celebrity of sorts. His commercials played constantly on local TV, his face plastered on billboards across the county. His company had expanded from one small garage to a chain of luxury auto shops servicing 3 states. "That car is dead," Phillips declared with clinical detachment, wiping his hands on a pristine cloth. "The engine block is cracked, transmission's shot, electrical system is fried, frame has rust damage." He looked at Mike with something between pity and disdain. "Even if I could fix it, parts for these old models are nearly impossible to find. And when you can find them, they cost more than the car's worth." Mike's throat tightened. "There must be something you can do. This car, it's important." Phillips glanced at his diamond watch. "Look, I'll give you $5,000 for it. We can strip it for whatever parts are salvageable. Best offer you'll get anywhere. $5,000. The car was worth at least 3 times that, even in its current condition. But Mike needed transportation now, not principles. "I need to think about it," Mike said. "Don't think too long. That offer expires today." Phillips handed him his business card. "Call my office when you decide." Mike left without answering, the weight of impossible choices bearing down on his shoulders. That evening, after the children were asleep, Mike sat at the kitchen table surrounded by bills. Even with his decent salary as a mechanical engineer at Precision, raising 2 kids in this economy left little wiggle room. The mortgage, medical bills from Jessica's illness, and the kids' activities consumed most of his income. A new car loan would push them over the edge. His phone lit up with a text from his boss. "Don't forget, presentation for the Westfield account tomorrow, 9 a.m. sharp." Mike rubbed his temples. Without reliable transportation, even keeping his job was now in jeopardy. A soft knock on the kitchen doorframe interrupted his thoughts. Liam stood there, looking older than his 13 years in the dim light. "Dad, is everything okay with the car?" Mike forced a smile. "Just some engine trouble, buddy. Nothing to worry about." Liam hesitated. "I heard you on the phone. Something about $5,000? Mike sighed. His son was too perceptive for his own good. "Come sit down." Liam slid into the chair across from him. "The car needs major repairs," Mike explained. "The repair shop offered to buy it instead." But that's Grandpa's car, Liam said, eyes widening. You always said you'd never sell it. Sometimes adults have to make tough decisions. Liam's face fell. Mom would have found another way. The words stung, though Mike knew his son hadn't meant them to hurt. Jessica had always been the creative problem solver in the family, finding solutions where Mike saw only obstacles. After Liam returned to bed, Mike found himself in the garage, staring at the empty space where the Mustang should have been. His eyes drifted to the workbench, dusty with disuse since Jessica's illness had consumed all his free time. In the corner sat his father's old toolbox. On a whim, Mike opened it, the familiar smell of motor oil and metal bringing back memories of summer days spent underneath cars. His father patiently teaching him the name and purpose of each tool. A man who can fix his own car can fix his own life, his father used to say. Mike had been a quick study back then, with natural mechanical aptitude. Before college, before his corporate job, before life got complicated, he'd been the neighborhood kid who could diagnose an engine problem just by listening to it. An idea began to form, ridiculous, impossible, yet somehow compelling. What if he fixed the car himself? Mike hadn't done serious mechanical work in 15 years. He had no garage, limited tools, and absolutely no spare time. The Mustang needed specialized parts and expertise, but the alternative was losing his father's legacy and going into debt for a car with no soul, no history. Mike opened his laptop and began to search. Forums for Mustang enthusiasts, YouTube tutorials on engine rebuilds, online marketplaces for vintage auto parts. By 3 a.m., he had the beginnings of a plan, insane and risky, but a plan nonetheless. The next morning, bleary-eyed but determined, Mike called his neighbor, Sarah, a retired teacher who often helped with the kids. "I need a huge favor," he explained his situation. Sarah, whose late husband had been a car enthusiast, not only agreed to help with the kids, but offered her empty garage as a workspace. Next, Mike called his boss, requesting to use 2 weeks of his saved vacation time, plus work remotely for the remainder of the month. Finally, he called Phillips. "I'll give you $2,000 to tow the Mustang to my friend's garage instead of scrapping it," Mike said without preamble. Phillips laughed. "You're throwing money away. That car is beyond saving." "That's my problem, not yours." After a pause, Phillips agreed, though not without a parting shot. "Your funeral, buddy. Some things are better left to professionals." That afternoon, the Mustang arrived at Sarah's garage. Looking at it now, in the harsh light of day, Mike almost reconsidered. The once proud vehicle looked defeated, its classic lines interrupted by rust spots and dents accumulated over decades. When the kids came home, Mike sat them down. "I've got a project," he explained. "I'm going to try to fix Grandpa's car myself." Emma looked confused. "But you're not a car fixer, Daddy. You're an engineer." "Before I was an engineer, I used to work on cars with Grandpa. I think I can do this, but I'll need your help. It's going to mean some sacrifices." "What kind of sacrifices?" Liam asked suspiciously. "I'll be spending evenings and weekends in Sarah's garage. We'll need to budget extra carefully. And you two might need to be a bit more independent for a while." To Mike's surprise, both children looked excited rather than disappointed. "Can I help?" Liam asked. "I'm good with tools." "Me too," Emma chimed in. "I can hold the flashlight." For the first time that day, Mike's smile was genuine. "It'll be a family project then." The next morning, Mike began in earnest. First, he needed to assess exactly what was wrong with the car. Phillips hadn't been entirely wrong. The engine was in terrible shape and many components needed replacement. Mike created a spreadsheet of needed parts and their costs, nearly having a heart attack at the total. He'd have to get creative. His first breakthrough came through an online forum for classic Mustang owners, where he connected with Carlos, a collector in the next state who had a salvageable engine block from the same model year. "I was saving it for a project, but my wife says I have too many projects already," Carlos told him over the phone. "I'll sell it to you for half of what you'd pay elsewhere if you promise to send me pictures when you're done." Each evening after work, Mike headed straight to Sarah's garage. The first week was discouraging. Just removing the damaged engine was back-breaking work, and every component he removed revealed another problem beneath. His hands, once soft from years of keyboard work, became calloused and perpetually stained with grease. He fell into bed exhausted each night, only to rise before dawn to review tutorials before work. Liam proved surprisingly helpful, his smaller hands able to reach places Mike couldn't. Emma appointed herself project manager, checking items off the to-do list and bringing sandwiches and encouraging notes. Word of Mike's project spread through the neighborhood, then his workplace. On the 10th day, when Mike was struggling to lift a transmission component, his doorbell rang. 3 of his coworkers stood there with six-packs and pizza. "We heard you're rebuilding a classic," said Dave from accounting. "My dad restored vintage cars. Thought you could use some extra hands." The project began to take on a life of its own. A retired mechanic from down the street offered expertise. A client from work who collected classics donated original interior panels he'd been storing in his attic. Even Mike's boss stopped by one weekend, rolling up his sleeves to help with the wiring. But there were setbacks too. A critical part arrived damaged. The rebuild kit for the carburetor was the wrong model. An unexpected rainstorm leaked through Sarah's garage roof, threatening their progress. 20 days in, Mike hit rock bottom. After working until midnight, he discovered that the transmission he'd spent 3 days rebuilding had a hairline crack that rendered it useless. The replacement would cost $200, money he simply didn't have. He sat on Sarah's driveway at 1 a.m., covered in grease, fighting tears of frustration. The porch light came on, and Sarah emerged with 2 mugs of tea. "Bad night?" she asked, handing him a mug. "I can't do this," Mike admitted. Phillips was right. Some things should be left to professionals. I'm in over my head. Sarah sipped her tea thoughtfully. "You know, my Harold rebuilt our first car when we couldn't afford a new one. Took him 6 months. He made plenty of mistakes. But that car took us across the country 3 times. I don't have 6 months. I don't even have 10 more days." "No, but you have something Harold didn't." "What's that?" "A community." Sarah smiled. "Let me make some calls." The next day, a local mechanic who specialized in transmissions showed up. "Sarah was my 3rd-grade teacher," he explained. "She says you need transmission help. I owe her for believing in me when no one else did." He worked alongside Mike for an entire Saturday, charging only for parts at his wholesale cost. By day 25, the Mustang had a functioning engine, transmission, and electrical system. The body still needed work. The paint was faded and there were rust spots. But it ran. The first time the engine roared to life, the entire neighborhood turned out to witness it, applauding as if Mike had performed a miracle. In a way, he had. That night, Emma handed him a card the children had made. "World's best dad and car fixer." "We're proud of you, Dad," Liam said quietly. "Mom would be too, would." With 5 days left before his return to full-time office work, Mike focused on the cosmetics. A body shop owner offered his spray booth after hours at a steep discount. Mike chose the original color, a deep metallic blue that shimmered in the sunlight. On day 29, Mike drove the restored Mustang home for the first time, the children bouncing with excitement in their seats. "It's even better than before," Emma declared, running her hand over the refurbished dashboard. "Can I drive it when I turn 16? Liam asked, already planning ahead. Mike laughed. "We'll see. First, I have one more stop to make." The next morning was day 30. Mike dressed with unusual care, instructing the kids to do the same. "Where are we going?" Emma asked as they all piled into the Mustang. "To prove a point," Mike replied. He drove to Phoenix Auto Group, parking right in front of the main entrance where he knew Phillips took his morning coffee while reviewing the day's appointments. As he'd hoped, Phillips was there, surrounded by employees. The CEO's double take when he saw the Mustang pull up was everything Mike had hoped for. "What in the—" Phillips set down his coffee, approaching slowly as if he couldn't believe his eyes. The car gleamed in the morning sun, every chrome detail polished to a mirror finish, the engine purring smoothly, the interior restored to its original glory. Mike stepped out, opening the doors for his children. A small crowd of employees had gathered, several recording the moment on their phones. You said this car was dead, Mike said, loud enough for everyone to hear. Phillips circled the vehicle, professionally assessing the restoration. I underestimated you, he admitted finally. This is impressive. How did you manage it? I remembered who I was before I started believing people who told me what I couldn't do, Mike said. And I had help from people who believed in me. Phillips pulled out a business card. We should talk. A man with your skills would be an asset to our custom restoration division. Mike shook his head, smiling. I already have a job, and now I have a functioning family heirloom too. As Mike drove away, Liam asked, why didn't you take his offer? You could work on cars all the time. Mike glanced in the rearview mirror at his children. Because this project wasn't about changing careers. It was about remembering that we can do hard things when they matter. That's the lesson I wanted you both to learn. The story might have ended there, a personal triumph over adversity, except for one detail. One of Phillips's employees had posted the video of their encounter online. It went viral within days. Local news picked it up first. Single dad proves CEO wrong, restores dead car in 30 days. Then national outlets. Restoration enthusiasts shared Mike's detailed process photos, praising his ingenuity. Parents commented on his determination to preserve his family legacy for his children. Job offers flooded in. A national auto parts chain wanted him as a spokesperson. A cable network proposed a show where he helped others restore meaningful vehicles. His inbox filled with messages from single parents inspired by his story. But the most meaningful result came from his own children. Liam, once struggling in school, suddenly developed an interest in mechanical engineering, his grades improving as he connected classroom concepts to real-world applications. Emma started a Fix-It club at her school, encouraging girls to learn basic repairs. 3 months after the restoration, Mike stood in his new workshop, a proper garage he'd been able to build with the advance from his weekend TV show and book deal. The Mustang sat in the center, surrounded by the beginnings of new projects. His phone chimed with a message from a single mother in Ohio. My daughter saw your story. We're rebuilding her grandfather's truck together now. Thank you for showing us it's possible. Mike smiled, running his hand along the Mustang's fender. Sometimes, the things experts declare dead just need someone who refuses to give up on them. Like cars, like dreams, like the human spirit itself. The journey had taught Mike that broken things, whether cars, people, or families, often had plenty of life left in them. All they needed was someone willing to roll up their sleeves, learn what they didn't know, and commit to the messy, wonderful process of restoration. And that was a lesson worth passing down, far more valuable than any car could ever be.